Welcome back to Pokemon episode summaries. Today, I'll be doing episode 49, So Near, Yet So Far-Fetched. The episode begins with Ash and the gang in the woods as usual, this time resting on some rocks. Misty had let her Psyduck out to play around for a little bit, and Brock was busy tending to the Pokemon egg. Yes, they still had that. I know it's been a while since we checked up on it. Brock then pulls out a piece of paper, which contains an account about a whole bunch of rumors about a Pokemon called Farfetch'd. Ash, knowing that these were just rumors, decides to learn about Farfetch'd through better means, the Pokedex. The Pokedex proceeds to explain that Farfetch'd was a flying-type Pokemon, and it was known as being rare because it was tasty. And not just the Pokemon itself, but the item it was known for holding, being a leek. Brock then further reads the paper that had the rumors on it, trying to convince Ash that maybe some of them were true, when he discovers that there was a rumor that Farfetch'd had appeared in the very forest that they were in. Now that's convenient, isn't it? This immediately inspires Ash to want to catch the Farfetch'd, but then Misty interrupts, saying that she was out of water. Brock and Ash agree to go get Misty some water as they leave towards a spring to go do so, and this leaves Misty by herself with her Psyduck. She then obviously would rather be by herself though, instead of having to be annoyed by her Psyduck, so she recalls Psyduck into the Pokeball, but then hears quacking right after. She assumes that this was Psyduck protesting how it wanted to come out, so she lets him out. It's then revealed, though, that the quacking did not belong to Psyduck after all, but a Farfetch'd, who was in the area after all, and he had just appeared in front of Misty and started dancing around happily. This made Misty laugh, as she then decided that she wanted to capture one as well, just like Ash did. But before she could do so, the Farfetch'd then ran away into the woods, leading her to recall Psyduck into its Pokeball and go running after it at top speed. The Farfetch'd then attempted to hide behind a rock, leading Misty to cry out in desperation that she had lost it, but then she spots it yet again as it pops out from the rock and proceeds to continue running. This causes Misty to suddenly start running again after having stopped, and this causes her to not pay attention to where she's going, and this further causes her to crash into a boy who was walking down the path as well, being a guy named Keith. As a direct result of the crash, Misty ends up dropping her bag, so the guy apologizes, claiming that it was his fault that he ran into her, even though it was clearly Misty's, to be fair, because, Misty was the one who actually ran into him. But the boy just gives her back her backpack and runs off. Misty then returns to the campsite that Ash and Brock had since returned to, depressed as hell that the Farfetch'd had gotten away, as she wanted to catch a rare Pokemon. She then tells Ash and Brock about why she was gone, explaining about the Farfetch'd incident, which pisses Brock and Ash off, who were pissed off that she tried to catch him without them. But she then manages to calm Ash and Brock down by telling them how awesome Farfetch'd was and how fast it was, which impresses them. Brock then states how he was just happy that Misty was safe, having been worried when Ash and Brock had returned to not find her. He then informs her that Ash and Brock had successfully gathered some water for her and hands her bottle, but when she goes to put the bottle in the backpack, she realizes that there's nothing else in it, with the exception of some rocks. Meaning that when she had crashed into the boy back in the woods, the boy must have switched her bag. It's confirmed that the boy had in fact done this, as back in the woods, he looks inside Misty's backpack and is amazed to find all of her Pokemon in there, which was his goal, to steal Pokemon. Misty then notices that all her Pokemon are in fact gone, and this causes her to cry out in despair. Keith then returns to his base camp, where we see that he has in fact collected multiple other backpacks, not just Misty's, which implies that he had run into Misty on purpose to steal all of her Pokemon. He congratulates Farfetch'd for helping him, and states how easy stealing Pokemon was because of him. When suddenly, Farfetch'd spots Team Rocket, informing Keith. Team Rocket are also looking for Farfetch'd as well, having heard the rumors about it, and suddenly, Meowth then spots the Farfetch'd, which had since revealed itself, and caused Meowth to get very happy as they realized that they could capture it and steal it successfully, thinking that Farfetch'd had no trainer. Jesse and James are then shocked to learn that Farfetch'd does in fact have a trainer though, which depresses them, as that means they can't capture it without stealing, which is definitely going to be a lot more difficult for them, because, they can't do anything right. Keith then learns of Team Rocket's desire to acquire Farfetch'd, and offers that he would in fact trade them his Farfetch'd, along with Misty's Staryu and Starmie that he had captured, in return for something else, not specifying what, saying that they could work out the exact details of the deal later. Surprised but overjoyed at Keith's willingness to give away the Farfetch'd, they then follow him to his destination, which was a boat, so that he could cross the river. Keith then claims that he forgot something back at his campsite, and runs back to go grab it quick, as Team Rocket wave him off. Team Rocket then get the idea to steal all of the Pokemon that he has instead, as opposed to trading with him, because that means they wouldn't have to give anything up. Yeah, Team Rocket being Team Rocket as usual. Team Rocket then get into the boat that Keith was going to use, and leave with Keith's current backpack full of Pokemon, without the Farfetch'd, who was still there, noticing. Team Rocket aren't on the water for long though, when suddenly a cork comes loose in the boat, leading Team Rocket to try and patch it up to the best of their ability, but being incompetent fucks, they fail miserably. This causes the Farfetch'd, who had secretly boarded the boat with them, to laugh his ass off as the boat capsizes, sending Jesse and James and the bag of Pokemon into the water. Falling from the boat causes Jesse and James to lose their Pokemon, as their Pokeballs had fallen out of their pocket, and were now floating to a waterfall. Not wanting their Pokemon to be lost forever, Team Rocket then go into Keith's backpack, expecting to find the Staryu and Starmie that he had mentioned, so that they could utilize them to tread the water and retrieve their Pokeballs. But then, when Jessie opens the bag, she discovers that, just like what had happened with Misty, there was now nothing in it but rocks. This implies that Keith had tricked Team Rocket, essentially pulling a double cross on them. Team Rocket thought they tricked him, but oh no, he was the true mastermind after all, as he had even rigged the boat to have the cork explode so that Team Rocket would capsize and he could steal their Pokemon. His Farfetch'd then does exactly this, scooping up Jessie and James's Pokeballs and taunting Meowth as Team Rocket then went over the waterfall that the capsized boat was heading towards, causing Team Rocket to pummel into the water as Farfetch'd returns to Keith, giving him the retrieved Pokemon. Meanwhile, Ash and the gang had went to the local police station and found Officer Jenny, informing her that Misty's bag had been accidentally stolen by Keith. Now, I don't know why they thought that it was an accident, as why would Keith just have rocks in his bag for no reason? I guess it's just part of them being the overly optimistic protagonist, but when Misty explains that all of her Pokemon had gone missing as a result of the bag switch, stating how concerned she was for them, Officer Jenny then gives them the cold hard facts, stating that the incident was not in fact an accident, but it was on purpose, stating that there had been 5 other incidents of missing backpacks in the last fucking week, and it was all due to a Farfetch'd, which has always been spotted on the scene. Officer Jenny then reveals that she's been trying to catch the Farfetch'd and its owner all week, but couldn't, so she just implies that she's essentially useless. Cops for ya, love it. We then cut to Keith and Farfetch'd at Keith's camp as he gives an exposition dump of his and Farfetch'd backstory. Essentially, Keith had found Farfetch'd when it was injured by getting hit by a truck, and he healed it back to health. After seeing how easily the Farfetch'd got injured though, this convinced Keith that the Farfetch'd was weak and unable to do any real battling, so this made him want to steal Pokemon instead of have to work for them or try and catch them. He claims that he wishes he didn't have to steal if he didn't have to, but stated that there was no other way for him to survive without doing so. Now, if he was just stealing stuff like food or whatever, and it's because he couldn't get any food without stealing, that'd be a little different. But you don't need other people's Pokemon, okay? So it's not a necessity. So why are you defending that you need them to survive? Maybe he thinks he needs other Pokemon of his own to battle off potential wild Pokemon that he would encounter, but come on, bro, what are you going to encounter? A Rattata? But hey, at least Keith had some sort of conscience. Meanwhile, in Keith's tent, Psyduck had broken out of its Pokeball as it usually does, and successfully managed to escape without Keith or Farfetch'd noticing due to them being distracted by their conversation. Meanwhile, Team Rocket were pissed off as fuck and were plotting to steal their Pokemon back, but they were so pissed off that James almost fucking killed himself as he almost fell out of their air balloon. Meanwhile, back with Ash and the gang, they had returned to the spot in the woods where Misty had originally lost her bag with Officer Jenny, with Misty declaring how she was going to find her Pokemon no matter what, absolutely furious at Keith for what he had done. However, when Misty starts recounting all the Pokemon that she lost, she forgets to mention Psyduck, obviously, because of how much she hated him. Ash informs her that she forgot to mention Psyduck, with Misty confirming that she did not forget him, she just didn't feel like fucking mentioning him because she hated him so much, stating that she could never forget his stupidity. As if on cue, Psyduck then shows up out of a bush and returns to Misty. Misty then tries to question it about where it had been and where her bag was, but the Psyduck, justifying Misty's annoyance with it, is useless as usual, unable to say anything. But I mean, what did you expect it to say? It's a Pokemon, all it can say is its name. Misty still obviously gets pissed off though, and gets even more pissed off when Psyduck fails to tell them where it came from and where Keith was. Misty's anger then seemingly motivates it enough though, as it's able to point left. This leads Misty to instruct the gang to follow Psyduck, trusting what it had said, but Ash and Pikachu are rightfully skeptical, as maybe Psyduck just was scared of Misty and was like, oh, I guess I better point somewhere, so she quits yelling at me, or he just pointed left by complete coincidence. Meanwhile, Keith and Farfetch'd had just successfully stolen more Pokemon, ready to leave their current campsite and find a new spot filled with new trainers, when suddenly Team Rocket comes up to them and confronts them, wanting their Pokemon back, while also scolding him for having rigged the boat. Keith then defends that the whole boat thing was just a joke and that he liked to play pranks, but apologizes anyway, offering to give them back their Pokemon in exchange for Jessie and James not harming him like they wanted to, claiming that he wanted to get the Pokemon off of his hands anyway, as all he liked was the thrill of the prank. He didn't actually enjoy raising Pokemon, so he didn't need them after the prank was done. Team Rocket takes back their Pokemon, but demands that they wanted more than just that, leading Keith to give them essentially all of the Pokemon that he had stolen, once again stating how he no longer needed them. He then apologizes once again as he walks off, with Team Rocket having let him go, now satisfied with the amount of Pokemon that they had. I guess that's all it took, was stealing Pokemon from a stealer for them to actually be successful. Meanwhile, just then, as Team Rocket leave off in their balloon, Ash and the gang arrive to confront Keith, meaning that Psyduck had actually done something correct for once. Let's go, Psyduck, you actually did it, good job. Misty then angrily demands that Keith give her back her Pokemon, with Jenny telling Keith that he was under arrest for all the crimes he's committed. But then Ash adds that instead of simply arresting him and throwing him in a jail cell, there was a better way to teach him a lesson, which was to make him have a Pokemon battle so that he could see how hard Pokemon had to work to get stronger, as opposed to taking the easy way out by stealing. Keith then replies by saying that his Farfetch'd was too weak to battle, and brings up his bullshit about how he needed to steal in order to survive, because his Farfetch'd alone wasn't strong enough to protect him from the wild. Brock then rebuts this by being like, yo bro, that's why Pokemon trainers exist. They train their Pokemon. You can't just expect your Farfetch'd to be super strong off the bat. You have to actually put in the effort to train it. Keith is about to reiterate his original point and be like, look dude, my Farfetch'd is just too fucking weak, man. But Farfetch'd gets angry at this, and he's like, dude, I'm not weak. I got this. I want to battle, so let's do it. Keith then decides to accept Farfetch'd's request, as Ash happily sends out his Bulbasaur to give Farfetch'd a good challenge. Bulbasaur instantly uses Tackle Attack, but Farfetch'd is able to jump away and dodge, leading Bulbasaur to try attacking it once again with Vine Whip, and he hits it multiple times, fucking beating it like James was getting beat by Jezebel in the last episode, leading Keith to become concerned, not wanting his Farfetch'd to get hurt again like it did by the truck, demanding that it retreat. However, the Farfetch'd had gotten progressively more determined to win after every hit by Bulbasaur's Vine Whip. It just made it more angry and more motivated. So, the Farfetch'd then declines Keith's requests and uses its motivation to speed up using an agility attack, which Brock confirms. Keith is obviously shocked by this agility attack, not aware that his Pokemon actually had moves like that. And maybe that's why you should have actually waited until you saw it battle to judge it, instead of judging its fucking battle strength based on it being hit by a truck, you idiot. Anyways, Farfetch'd then utilizes its enhanced speed to circle around Bulbasaur, hitting him with his leak from multiple directions, before finally finishing him off with a huge blow to the head. With Bulbasaur defeated, Ash recalls it into his Pokeball, and Keith says once again how he was shocked that Farfetch'd had an attack like that, stating that he wouldn't have ever started stealing if he knew that Farfetch'd was that powerful. Once again, maybe that's why you should have tried battling with it first, you idiot. You clearly weren't that opposed to stealing if you didn't bother battling with your Pokemon first. Pikachu must realize this, as he, along with Ash, are still determined to battle, despite Bulbasaur losing, and Ash tries to send Pikachu in, but then Misty butts in, saying that she would like to battle instead, but then remembers that she doesn't have any other Pokemon when she attempts to send them out. Ash reacts in pure shock to Misty's forgetfulness of both that, and once again the fact that she still had Psyduck. Misty is obviously hesitant to send out Psyduck, especially after Farfetch'd laughs at it in an attempt to taunt it, but I mean, give Psyduck a chance. It actually did something right this episode. If it wants to battle, let it battle. Misty does, as Psyduck charges in, but unfortunately, he isn't able to do much, and Farfetch'd just proceeds to keep hitting him on the head with his leak. This makes Psyduck's headache worse, which causes Misty to celebrate, as she knows what this means, as Psyduck then unleashes its psychic powers, being able to because of its headache, which lifts Farfetch'd up into the air and sends him flying into a tree, knocking it into Keith in the process, sending him into the tree as well. As Misty celebrates her victory over Keith, Team Rocket were still in their balloon, celebrating all of the Pokemon that they had gotten, but then they realized, much to their anger, that Keith had tricked them once again, and he didn't actually give them Pokeballs, but rather Voltorb. Team Rocket then throw down the Voltorb in both desperation to survive and in anger, hoping that they would land on Keith, and fortunately for them, they do. They land near Ash and the gang as well, but all the Voltorb coincidentally roll right over to Keith, and Keith sees this as a sign from God to essentially be like, you know what, maybe stealing is wrong after all, as the Voltorb all explode on him and his Farfetch'd. Later that day, the Ash and the gang, along with Keith and Officer Jenny, had returned to the police station, and Keith did in fact apologize and stated that he would return all the Pokemon that he stole, having already done so to Misty, returning all her Pokemon, much to her satisfaction, along with Psyduck's, who had since calmed down from all of its headaches and its psychic attacks. Officer Jenny then thanks Keith for his cooperation and informs him that since all the trainers were going to get their Pokemon back, they had agreed not to charge him any fines. And I mean, I think he should be charged some fines as well, man. Then that'll force him to run out of money, and he'll have to start stealing once again, but this time from a goddamn bank. Keith then apologizes to Farfetch'd for doubting its strength for so long, informing it that he was now determined to become a proper trainer as opposed to stealing, and was going to train Farfetch'd to become even stronger. Yay! Meanwhile, Team Rocket were in their balloon, debating on if they should tell Giovanni about Keith and his Farfetch'd so that Giovanni could get revenge for them or some shit. I don't know what they thought he was going to do, but Meowth convinces Jesse and James that this is a bad idea, as if Giovanni discovered that a fucking kid was strong enough to defeat Team Rocket, he would likely fire Team Rocket and hire Keith instead. But I mean, how would Giovanni react to the numerous times that Ash has defeated Team Rocket then? He'd give Ash a fucking promotion of a lifetime in that case. Their conversation is then cut short as the episode ends with the reveal that one Voltorb was still in Team Rocket's balloon, and it explodes, sending them blasting off, much to Team Rocket's dismay.